How a billion-dollar Cambodian cybercrime empire was built. Disclaimer. This video is a work of commentary, analysis, and opinion based on publicly available information. It is produced for educational and journalistic purposes under the right to freedom of expression. Article 10, Human Rights Act, 1998. The views expressed are those of the creator and do not claim to represent absolute fact. They came for the phones, then they came for the lives behind them. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on a digital nightmare that rose from the shadows of Southeast Asia. A billion-dollar cybercrime empire built in plain sight, with slick offices, smiling salespeople, and a single unashamed aim: extract cash from millions and bury the trail so deep no prosecutor could ever dig it up. This is the story of how an industrialized criminal machine was assembled, brick by brick, server by server, and why the damage will echo for decades. The facade. Imagine glass towers at dawn. Coffee carts, business cards printed in English, Mandarin, and Russian. On the outside, startups, call centers, customer support hubs. On the inside, rows of desks with identical monitors, headphones, and scripts. The workers, young, articulate, and often recruited from rural provinces, speak a dozen accents but share the same instruction: be convincing, be relentless, and never leave a trail. How it began. Recruitment and culture. Recruitment looked like employment. Job ads promising remote marketing, e-commerce support, or telesales with excellent commission. Applicants were interviewed, trained, and indoctrinated into a culture of plausible deniability. Training modules taught tone of voice, scripts to charm the elderly, and how to deflect suspicion with technical jargon. Criminal productization, scams as industry. What made this empire different wasn't just scale, it was productization. Scams were turned into products with version numbers and quality control. There were call scripts for the gullible, phishing kits for the tech-literate, romance scam playbooks, fake investment platforms, payroll skimming tools, and ransomware as a service packages. Money laundering, how billions looked clean. Dirty money found a highway through this empire. The laundering process was methodical and surgical. Criminals used shell firms to issue invoices for fake services, routed payments through regional payment processors, and employed a global network of mule accounts, real people who were paid a cut to accept and transfer funds. Victims and human cost. But let's not lose sight of who paid. Elderly retirees lost life savings to urgent legal fees. Small business owners were convinced to transfer wages into accounts that vanished. Families were extorted. Romance victims poured their hearts and funds into digital fantasies. Employees at the centers in time became disposable cogs, complicity and enablers. An empire this large requires enablers, complicit bankers, crooked lawyers, and corrupt officials. Some local officials looked the other way, pocketing bribes. Others were actively involved. Western tech platforms, too, were exploited, their ad systems and APIs used to disguise operations. Global reach and geopolitical tinderbox. From Phnom Penh to Phnom Batu, from European bank accounts to Nigerian money mules, this network was global. It exploited the same weaknesses that power cross-border crime: differing legal standards, slow diplomatic cooperation, and fragmented cyber law. How law enforcement tried and failed and sometimes succeeded? Agencies mobilized, cyber units, Interpol notices, joint task forces. There were spectacular raids and headline arrests. But the prosecution rate remained low. Evidence vanishes in the clouds. Witnesses are intimidated. Money is laundered through layers so complex they become forensic dead ends. Why it continues? Social and economic drivers? Why do these empires keep forming? Because the incentives are enormous and the barriers to entry low. Corruptible systems, desperation for income, and the global appetite for risk create a perfect storm. The human choice, insiders who could have stopped it. There were choices made along the way. Bankers who ignored red flags. VCs who celebrated growth without due diligence. Recruiters who prioritized fills over backgrounds. These choices, small and large, fed the machine. What must change? So what must we do? First, attack the money flows. Regulators must harmonize KYC, close payment corridors used by fraudsters, and demand transparency from ad platforms. Second, protect victims better. Fast freeze orders, emergency payouts, and international victim support networks. Moral weight and warning! This empire rose because the world gave it permission, through negligence, greed, and fractured governance. Its $1 billion were not created, they were extracted. If you know someone who has been targeted, don't shrug it off. Report it. Document it. Demand justice. I'm Felix. If this felt close to home, it should. This isn't science fiction, it's an industry. And industries are built by humans. They can be dismantled by humans too. Stay sharp. Protect your friends and family. And when the next slick job ad arrives in an inbox, remember, sometimes the nicest suit hides the ugliest intent. Stay awake. Stay aware. See you next time.